You're listening to the weekly Dartscast. 180!
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and alongside me as always, darts statistician, and I was going to say the darts driver king, but he has some competition for that crown from Messrs Moss and Webster. It is, of course, Burton. DeWitt. How are you doing?
Yeah, I think you've surpassed me, and then you sent me that remarkable time that the former world champion Mark Webster put together. So I'm down to probably third, maybe fourth. We'll have to see what Ted Evans has done recently on Strava, but I'll make a play to get my crown back, and then all will be right with the world. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. That was an impressive time from Mark Webster. I don't think I'll be going that quick, but I am a local legend again, so I'm happy with that. But enough about that. It's time to talk some darts, and it is our World Matchplay preview show. The biggest darts tournament of the summer gets underway on Saturday, and you're going to hear from the defending champion, the world number one, the reigning world champion, Peter Wright. He's going to be calling in, plus one of four debutants in this year's World Matchplay, Rowby-John Rodriguez, the showman himself. He's going to stop by, and also the Sky Sports commentator, Stuart Pyke, is going to be with us in a few moments. But we have to start the show this week with some sad news, and that is John Gwynne, the legendary commentator, passing away on Saturday. How will John Gwynne be remembered in darts?
Yeah, well, go back a little over 10 years ago now, and the big three commentators on Sky were, of course, Dave Lanning, Sid Waddell, and John Gwynne. And over the past decade, all three of them have sadly departed us, and a little too soon on each case. I think Gwynne will be remembered in that same breath because he was alongside them. He might not have had as many big moments and big commentary moments as Sid Waddell, because who has? Sid Waddell was doing it from the 70s and 80s. But John Gwynne, from the time it went over to Sky for over 2 decades, was one of the three leading voices of darts. And we've had him on the show a few times over the last few years, and we've got to see that trip down memory lane, as we always get with him, because he has seen the PDC from the earliest days. And it's not just darts, where he was just an incredible voice, an incredibly articulate voice. Also in football, part of Gillette. And actually, I'm not going to call it football, because what was the show called? Soccer Saturday, the way it's supposed to be called. And I remember, actually, I did not know he was on Soccer Saturday the first time I heard him on it, because I was listening for whatever reason, because it was before you could get all the championship games, and because I'm a Middlesbrough fan, of course, we're in the championship. And I heard that voice. I'm like, I know that voice. And who knows what League One or League Two ground he was at. But it sounded as if it was a Premier League match. The way he was able to describe the action and bring excitement. And he could do that in football. He could do that in darts. Sure, he could do it in soccer, too, since we're going down that. And he'll be remembered as one of the three voices that brought darts really back into the mainstream after the split, and after as the PDC established itself as the leading competition in darts. As I said, he's gone too soon, just like Sid and Dave before him. But the one good thing about the World Matchplay coming so soon is that wherever they are now, they'll be together doing alternate and probably sometimes more enlightening and energetic commentary on the World Matchplay.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, John Gwynne, his voice will be long remembered and associated with so many iconic moments in darts. I think back to the 2007 World Championship final at the Circus Tavern, Raymond van Barneveld, Phil Taylor, and those words from John Gwynne calling that game in the sudden death leg, Barneveld, the champion of the world, and even the Brendan Dolan 161. We've just seen Brendan win a title the last few days, but that 161 finish, the 9-dart, the first double in, double out, he was in the commentary box calling that one. And I think for me, one of the big things with John Gwynne in his commentary was the passion that he showed throughout his long career. Even if you go back to those early days when he commentated on the first PDC World Championship, when it was the WDC back in the 90s, and even towards the end when he was commentating on his last World Matchplay, he did 20 World Championships in the PDC, 20 World Matchplays, and he was on stage for that presentation after Phil Taylor beat Adrian Lewis in that 2013 final, and that showed you just how much of a high regard John was thought of in darts, and still is even now as well. You think the 10 years after that, even after he stopped commentating in the PDC, you still heard his voice around darts. You think to the World Masters 2019, that's when I first met John Gwynne, and he was still just as excited for the game, and he was going through his pronunciation of Mario van den Bogarde, and you could just tell he was excited to get that pronunciation right, which not many people can do. And even the World Championships, the BDO 2020, he was there as well, and he was always so generous with his time. And we did, of course, hear him only a few months ago, the World Seniors Championship, the very first one, he made an appearance for that. So he still had such a passion for the game. And I think for me as well, when I first started watching darts around the early 2000s, it was Sid Waddell, Dave Lanning and John Gwynne, and they were well in their stride then as a trio. And watching darts then, I didn't really know much about it, but one of the reasons I did get hooked on it was because of the excitement that those three in the commentary box could bring, even to the dullest of games. They would make it interesting. They would bring it to life. And yeah, as you say, Sid and Dave, sadly no longer with us, and John has now passed as well. But the three of them will be remembered for me personally as the best commentary team that we've ever had in darts. And yeah, all three will be sadly missed in the game.
Well, now we'll go on to our first of three guests on this week's show, and it's with former colleague of John Gwynne and current Sky Sports commentator, Stuart Pyke.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the Sky Sports commentator, Stuart Pyke. Thanks for the time, Stuart. How are you doing?
Yes, all good, thank you very much.
Good to hear. There's lots to get to. It's been a while since we've had you on the show. January of last year, back when we were still watching tournaments with no fans in the building. So for you as a commentator, what was that transition like from going back to having fans in the venue again?
It just makes all the difference, doesn't it? Just the atmosphere, the joy that you see on people's faces, all very strange for us, because just to give you a little glimpse of what it was like behind the scenes, I mean, we could literally turn up at a tournament and have 4, 5 or 6 different little boxes, and you had to stick to that box. It was all the glass in between, and obviously you had your own microphone and your own headphones, and that's the way it was. But that's the way it should be, of course. No chances being taken. And it was really, really strange to first of all go back to one commentary box, but with a little, a piece of glass between, and then eventually just one commentary box as per normal. As we saw at the back end of 2019 and the start of 2020. So it was very odd as well for us in the commentary box to go back to being able to actually talk to your co-commentator and actually touch another human being. So, I think everybody's just glad all round. If you may remember, it's the match play last year where just bit by bit the fans were coming back, and it got busier and busier, and it was a sellout by the end of the week, as it will be, of course, this time. But that was the real kickstart of it all 12 months ago. And as we know, the World Championship was sold out. It's going to be sold out again. And I think that the one thing to say is that darts fans, wherever we've been around the world in the last 12 months or so, have responded and will continue to respond. It really is the sporting bubble that just simply won't burst.
Well, I want to touch on the World Championships last year, because you were sharing accommodation with your fellow commentator Mark Webster, and you entertained us on Twitter with your videos, the Muswell Hillbillies. We'd see Mark get annoyed with the camera, but was that all for show as well?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, he thinks he could win an Oscar. I'd say he could win a Razzie. But yeah, it was all in good fun. And hopefully we'll have the same accommodation booked for the Ali Pally this year. The Muswell Hillbillies will return. But yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, the response we had from people, it's all a bit of fun. I think as well, it's a carry-on from when I was doing Man with a Mic during lockdown, and it just seemed a natural extension to have a bit of fun, the two of us, sharing that house in Muswell Hill. So yeah, all good fun, and let's be honest. Anybody who knows Mark Webster knows he's a bad-tempered old sod. No, I jest. Top guy. We become really good friends, and so we get on most of the time.
Glad to hear it. And that World Championship will be remembered for that iconic 9-darter from Willie Borland to win his first round match. You called it in with the Pure Darts line, a clip which then goes viral, seen millions of times around the world. What's that like, having your voice to a moment like that, which was seen by so many people?
Well, I've done so many, but for many reasons that was just special, because it was from someone, you would have to say unexpected, but also someone up until that World Championship is that a lot of people hadn't even heard of. And he just played a fantastic game, and it was just one of those matches where I think sometimes when you enter the building, you're not quite sure what game it's going to be, but you just get a sense of that there's something special in the air, and I think that was one of those days, and Willie was, we'll never ever forget that moment, whatever he does in his career, and I would say for several reasons it was up there for me as well. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years now, along with the Michael Smith Johnny Clayton game at the Ali Pali, which it's got to be probably the top three of the best games that I've ever called, to the extent that towards the end of the game it was like commentating as a fan, and I got an Apple Watch, and the warning was going on, was bleeping on my watch to calm down because the heart rate was so high. So that kind of sums up the excitement of that game. But it's a terrific World Championship. I felt desperately sorry for Michael Smith. I think Peter Wright, for those 10 legs at the end, was just world-beating, world-class and unbeatable. But you just kind of felt that Michael had a chance or two to throw for 6-4 up, didn't he, in sets, and Peter Wright never gave him the opportunity. So I think his time will come. I've banged on about it for so long and at so many tournaments that on one tournament I'm bound to get it right.
Well, we're interested to know as well, as a commentator, do you look back and critique your own work or seek advice from someone else? And with a call like that for that Willie Borland 9-darter, do you get an instant feeling of, I really nailed that call, or maybe I could have said it slightly differently?
Yeah, the thing is that it's spontaneity. Even when you're 2/3 of the way through your 6 perfect darts, no idea what you're going to say. I think that's the best thing about it. It's with any game or with any final. How am I going to wrap it up? How am I going to sum up what's been an epic final, and congratulate the winner and commiserate with the loser when you've done it so many times and trying to do it differently? I think spontaneity, and the beauty of it is that literally until it happens, having no idea what you're going to say at that given special moment.
And since we've last had you on, there's been some sad news in the world of darts. Firstly, earlier this year, we lost Nigel Pearson, one of your colleagues on Sky. I'm not sure if you two shared the commentary box too many times, but you obviously got to know each other well working for the Sky team. What are the memories that will stick with you from working with Nigel?
Just very, very sad. I mean, in the early days, we did share the comms box quite a lot, but yeah, just a very good friend and a great character, an absolute tragedy. There isn't a day even now that doesn't go by without me thinking of Nigel. And his daughter Sarah posts on Twitter pictures of her dad, which brings back so many memories, and it just goes to show how cruel this world is, that somebody so vibrant and so happy and with so much to live for was taken from us. And the fact that it was standing room only and some people couldn't even get in the church at Nigel's funeral just go to show in such high esteem, and what people felt about him and what people will feel about him for a long time.
Definitely. And just last weekend we sadly lost John Gwynne after his long battle with cancer, and John, along with Sid Waddell, Dave Lanning, they were an iconic trio for darts in the box. What legacy do you think John's going to leave behind?
Well, I mean, the voice, John had the voice, didn't he? He never needed a microphone, but the three of them, Sid and then Dave and now John, all gone. I was saying this week in a tribute to John, which summed it up perfectly, that it was darting, or the darting holy trinity, and it was, and they played such a part in putting the sport where it is today. I mean, I joined in 2003 as the fourth member of the team, and very much a nervous outsider, wondering what to expect from these three legends. But within days they became very firm friends. I have great respect and love for them all. And John, ironically, my wife and I were supposed to be going to see him either this week or next. I spoke to him not so long ago, and we were messaging, but obviously I was in touch with his son Andrew, and he went downhill very quickly. And I think that's the only good thing that you can say, that hopefully at the end he didn't suffer too much. But a darting icon, like the others in the Sports Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. There'll only ever be one Sid Waddell, one Dave Lanning and one John Gwynne. That's the best thing I can say. And just a final word on John. I don't think he want people to be sad. I always think that when John came into a room, that people smiled. I think people, should still smile today when they think of John Gwynne.
Yeah, agreed with that. Some nice words. And we last heard John commentate a little bit on the World Seniors earlier this year, a new event on the darts calendar. Did you manage to catch any of those senior events? What did you make of it?
I caught a little bit of it, yeah. It's a great concept, isn't it? And, people are warming to it, and it will grow and grow. And, I think it's probably fitting as well, as you say, that John's last darts commentary was on the final of the World Seniors at the Circus Tavern, where he commentated on Raymond van Barneveld winning the World Championship in what's still regarded as the greatest game back in 2007. So, very apt, and I think he was very proud to be there, and I think he wanted to be there. It didn't really matter how ill he was going to be there. He was going to fulfill his obligations, and he was going to commentate on the final, and that really is John Gwynne to a T.
Well, let's get on to this weekend, and it's the start of the World Matchplay. And as you mentioned, 2003, that was the first event you covered in darts for Sky. Almost 20 years later, you're still covering the darts and the biggest events. Can you believe it's been almost 20 years now?
It's a privilege. It always has been a privilege, and every tournament, I'm well aware of that. I've always said that I get paid for doing a hobby, and that really is it. I absolutely adore the darts, and I feel lucky, going back all those years to when I started in 2003. And my first game on the Monday afternoon was John Lowe against Keith Deller in the commentary box with Sid. I'd only gone up to Blackpool, supposedly to shadow for a couple of days after our great mate Dave Clark recommended me to Sky as possibly becoming that fourth commentator. So, yeah, never to be forgotten and never ever taken for granted either. I love every minute. I love every tournament, and I guess I'll carry on for as long as people want me. I think what I've certainly said is that when the phone stops ringing, I kind of get the message.
Good to hear. Well, the field for the match play, that was only confirmed on Monday, the draw shortly after. But do you know yet which games you're going to be commentating on in the first round?
No, not yet. We'll get a rota normally a day or so before the tournament starts. I know we say it at quite a lot of tournaments, and each year possibly at the match play, but for me it is the strongest field ever. And the quality there. Back in the old days, and I'm talking about 2003, 4, 5, 6 sort of thing. You would probably say that there were maybe 2 games where there's a possibility that the top seeded players would lose. On this one, there's so many games that you would say are too close to call, and in fact couldn't call it. The standard of the qualifiers. Don't forget, one of the qualifiers, or one of them not in the top 16, Adrian Lewis, for goodness sake. Adrian Lewis has had to win a Players' Championship to make absolutely sure that he's playing at Blackpool. It's great to see the debutants like Martin Luckman and Madars Razma. And what about the renaissance of Andrew Gilding? Who would have expected that? We remember his fantastic performance when he nearly beat Michael van Gerwen at Butlins at Minor. I think it was the Players' Championship, wasn't it? Or it might have been the UK Open, I can't remember. But his career looked to be over. But at stages in the last few weeks, he's been unplayable. And the fact that he's played Michael Smith, for me, causes a little bit of a problem, because I've gone each way on Michael Smith to either get to the final from that bottom half of the draw, or in fact win it on Sunday week.
Definitely jinxed Michael now, because myself and Burton have both tipped Michael to go all the way. But we've also got the first women's World Matchplay taking place next week, and we obviously know Lisa and Fallon are going to be the favourites, but how important do you think this event is going to be to help drive the ladies' game forward?
Massive. Obviously Fallon's fairy tale at the Ali Pally when she beat Ted Everts and Menchur Sulovich a couple of years back. I mean, that didn't just put women's darts on the map, it put darts on the map. The amount of publicity the sport got from those few days, you just couldn't buy. But I think in many ways this is more important. The PDC have done absolutely brilliantly with the way that they have taken the women's game forward. There was a great clamour after Fallon's brilliant performance at the Ali Pally for the PDC to do this, that, and bring in this, and get more trouble. But what they've done is that they've taken a good look at it. And they've taken their time, and then they've decided that there's going to be a women's series, then places up for grabs at the Grand Slam, places up for grabs at the Ali Pally, and now more women's. It's the one thing I think that you can say about the PDC, they get it right time after time, is this evolution, not revolution. And they take it at the right pace. But I think the women's match play, for what's at stake as well, and £10,000 for the winner, all played on finals day, so it has a real feel of a big event for the ladies. And I think in many ways that the hopefully the publicity it'll garnish from this, and also the performances of some of them, will make it extra special. The only sad thing for me is that Bo Greaves didn't have a crack, and I understand that she's feeling loyal and she wants to stay where she is for the moment in the WDF, and I totally understand that. But I think there's going to come a time when she won't be able to resist the lure of playing in the PDC Women's Series and seeing, dreaming, what might become, because there's no doubt that she is an absolute massive talent. But yeah, looking forward to it. I'll be commentating on that before doing the World Matchplay final itself next Sunday. But you've got to say that it's difficult at the moment to see beyond either Lisa or Fallon.
Yeah, we can't wait to find out. And then lastly, before we let you go, we can't go without mentioning your beloved Everton. Just about survived relegation at the end of last season in the Premier League. But as the new season draws closer, has that new season optimism returned for you yet?
Well, I think it's just been, a lovely, relaxed few weeks since the end of the season. I think that the only way to put it is that following Everton is like being in permanent purgatory. And I went to the game against Brentford at Goodison Park when they lost 3-2 in an absolute thriller. And the match that they won at Crystal Palace, against Crystal Palace in the event to stay up, I was actually at the O2. It was the Premier League darts night at the O2. I just couldn't concentrate. I think for the last half hour I might well have been on air with Mark Webster. I think if you ever watch it back, you might think, well, he's not saying much, is he, Stuart Pyke? Some people will say that's a very good thing anyway. But I was concentrating so much on the game, and it's just a huge sense of relief. I think the problem is I get too wrapped up in it. I wear my heart on the sleeve, and I think I've always been a bad loser, but I think I get worse as I get older.
Well, fingers crossed it'll be a better season for Everton. Stuart, we always appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best in Blackpool for the World Matchplay and what else is to come this year as well.
Lovely to catch up. Thank you.
Thanks to Stuart for joining us on this week's show. Moving on, the show must go on, and we must talk some darts now, and that's, of course, the World Matchplay, as it finally is here. Going into the 2021 World Matchplay, we discussed how wide open it was. A lot of people are now saying that it's even more wide open this year. Do you agree?
I've seen this said several times over the last few days since the field was confirmed on Monday evening. Then we had the draw as well a few hours later, and we'll come on to talk about the draw in more detail later. But I remember seeing a tweet from Matthew Edgar. He said that this is the most open match play ever. Dan Dawson, when he was conducting the draw with Paul Nicholson, he brought up, is this the most open match play? And it's a tag that you could make an argument for, couldn't you, when you think back to the history of this event, the 32 players in this event all going to be playing for the Phil Taylor Trophy. And Phil Taylor, he practically owned this tournament, 16 titles out of 23 years from the mid-90s to his last year, 2017. That's almost a 70% strike rate in holding the title at the end of the tournament. We did have a few years where we had Rod Harrington go back-to-back, Michael van Gerwen go back-to-back, but that last year that Phil played in it, he did a number on Michael van Gerwen, and I remember that game, such a one-sided game that the crowd were really on Michael's back that night. And the draw that Phil had that week, he was a surprise winner, I guess. I think he was around 25-1 before the tournament because of how tough that draw was. But since Phil has retired, we've had 4 World Match Plays, and we've had 4 different winners and 4 first-time winners as well. Gary Anderson, Rob Cross, Dimitri Vandenberg and Peter Wright. And you look at all the other majors in the PDC, whatever you like to call them, that have been held 4 or 5 times since then, and I can't think of one where we've had that many different winners and that many different first time winners, and we've not had someone win it twice in that time. So it shows that this is a hard tournament to win, and I think we say it every year that the strength in depth in the PDC, it does seem to get bigger and bigger. And I was looking at the seeds that we've got in this. We've got 12 of them have won a TV event in the PDC. In a senior event, you've got 3 others that have won staged events in the PDC, and the other one, the odd one out, Dirk van Dijvenbode, he's made 2 finals on TV in the last couple of years and one recently as well. So that shows you the quality we've got in the seeds. And even the Pro Tour qualifiers, you've got former major winners in there. You've got someone that's just won the World Cup last month, Damon Heta, players that have made major finals, semi-finals in the past. And I think when you throw in the fact as well that you've got a world number 1, Peter Wright, okay, he shows some good signs of form coming back in Barnsley over the weekend, but he's got 1 ranking title so far this season, and the player just below him in the rankings, Gwynne Price, he's had an up and down year, and even the tournament favourite since the draw was done, he's gone out to 11-2, I think, with the title sponsors Betfred, and that shows you how tough his draw is. Adrian Lewis in the first round, who's just won a title again, and then Joe Cullen or Damon Heta. So I think it's going to be difficult to try and predict a final and a winner, which we are both going to try and do later, but I think given the field of players that we have got assembled for the Winter Gardens this year, you could quite easily make a case that this is one of the most wide open match plays that we've had.
Yeah, I agree that it's wide open, but I'll touch on something slightly different, and that's the difference between this year and last year. If you go back to last year's show, well, one difference was I was in Mexico, so maybe it really wasn't wide open, because we know every time I go to Mexico, Peter Wright wins a major. So it wasn't really wide open. It was a guarantee last year that Peter Wright would be the World Matchplay champion. But we were thinking it was wide open for a completely different reason than we are this year. Last year, Michael van Gerwen was really struggling, and there was that opening at the top of the game where there was 3, 4, 5, 6 players who were all playing at a similar level near the top. And the quality beyond that was pretty good, but we weren't really thinking that any one of the 32 could go on and win it. We wouldn't have been that surprised. Obviously, on their day, anyone who qualifies is good enough. Or at least last year, anyone other than Glenn Durrant, who still is really struggling right now. Go back 2 years ago, Glenn Durrant certainly was good enough to win it. But the big difference this year is not that there isn't anyone playing at the level that Michael van Gerwen used to, and there still isn't. But that's not why I think it's wide open this year. It's because the number of players who are playing at that top level is not like 6. It's half this field. And those that aren't playing that much further behind. Look at the Pro Tour qualifiers. Who's in bad form right now? Ryan Searle, maybe? He's still pretty darn good and recently won a title with just a blitzkrieg of a day. And he can still do that on any given day. The biggest thing is he's been inconsistent recently. Brendan Dolan's had a really terrible year. And then he went and won a title on yesterday, as of the time of recording, a couple of days ago by the time you're listening. Who else is struggling? Callum Ritz has regressed a little this year, but he's still having flashes that he showed he's the same person. Gabriel Clemens, okay, he's not the player he was a couple years ago, but he's coming back into some form recently. Adrian Lewis just won a title. Martin Lukeman is probably the Pro Tour qualifier who's struggling the most right now, but it wasn't that long ago that he made a Euro Tour final. He's probably the weakest link in here, followed maybe by Madars Razma, but Madars Razma just made the final session on the Euro Tour. You know, even the players who are struggling of the Pro Tour qualifiers 2 months ago were playing pretty darn well. We've never seen that before. There's not really a weak link in this field. We will come back to this slightly later because John Thompson has a listener question that touches on that. But that's why I think this is so wide open, because even the Pro Tour players pretty much all are in pretty good form right now. Yes, there's still not someone playing at that Michael van Gerwen level, but it's not just the 6 players who there were last year. You know, the top 3 plus maybe Michael Smith, Dimitri Vandenberg, who made the final, and obviously Johnny Clayton, who had a breakthrough year. It's pretty much all the seeded players and a few of the Pro Tour qualifiers as well. Some of the ones I didn't mention. Damon Heta, who looks every bit a top 16, if not top 10, if not top 5 player recently. So there's so many players who really could win this tournament. That I think it's more wide open, or at least as wide open as last year, for different reasons, but still just as wide open.
Well, let's get on to the debutants in this year's World Matchplay. We've got 4 of them, and fair to say they've all been handed brutal draws. You've got Madars Razma going against Peter Wright. You've got Martin Schindler going against Gwynne Price. Martin Lukeman going against James Wade. And the last player to get in the field, Rowby-John Rodriguez, going against Johnny Clayton. But who are those 4 players, the debutants, has the best chance of causing an upset?
I think all of them could, because there are question marks. Yeah, and I will acknowledge first, I agree. Those are obviously really difficult draws. You have the top two players in the world, and you have the guy who topped the Premier League table this year, and you have another player who made the Premier League playoffs. So how much more difficult can that get? Very difficult, at least on paper, to pick harder draws than that. But all four of those players right now have question marks. Peter Wright's definitely coming back into form, and in the last couple of weeks, for the first time since becoming world number one, has really looked the part. He has regressed significantly for the first few months after becoming number one, but he's steadied himself at the summit and looks now like a player who could go and defend the title. But there's been flaws in his game recently, and it seems like he's been in his own head at times. It's a draw that you wouldn't want if you were picking out a player from these 16, but it's not one that is as difficult as it could be for getting the world number one. As far as the world number two, Gezi has a lot of questions right now, and Martin Schindler's playing really, really good stuff. He seems the player who's going to get a title this year. I'm a little surprised he still hasn't, but he's gotten close a few times. That's a challenging draw, but if you ever want to jar Gerwen Price, it's right now, because he's not been at the top of his game this year. He's been battling some injuries, and and the pressure is going to be on him, not on Martin Schindler. James Wade, we don't know which Wade we're going to get. There's been moments where James Wade is scoring better than ever, and he's finishing at least on par with ever, but there's times where he just doesn't look up for it. That said, as I said in the last question, Martin Lukeman has regressed a little bit over the last month or so, but still Wade, it depends which Wade shows up. And finally, Johnny Clayton he hasn't won a title yet this year, and since the Premier League has been facing a lot of early exits. He had a very, very good showing on the last day of the Pro Tour events to make the final, and he was the best player on the day. He wasn't the best player in the final. Brendan Dolan was, but he was the best player up until then, and that's why he got through to the final. But that's the first time we've seen Johnny Clayton look like the Johnny Clayton who was a world beater last year in some time. He's a player that has some question marks over the current state of his game. I think all four of these are tough draws, but at the same time, I think all four of them have a chance of causing the upset because of the question marks that are in all four of those seeds games. That said, if I'm going to have to pick one, and since the question says I have to pick one, I guess I will. I'm going to go Martin Schindler. I think Martin Schindler, beyond being the highest qualifier of these, is playing the best, probably playing the second or third best of any of the Pro Tour qualifiers right now. And just the questions in Gezi's game and the fact that he's not had much success here make him the prime target to pick an upset. But if all four do it, I wouldn't be all that surprised. And if all four seeds win, I wouldn't be all that surprised either.
I think that's a fair shout, and I'll work my way from the top to the bottom of the draw, going through the debutants. And right at the top of the draw, we do have Mads Rasmussen going against the top seed Peter Wright, and he was one of the players that last week, when we spoke about which players needed to have a good run in Barnsley, the last lot of Pro Tours heading into the World Matchplay, Peter Wright was one of the players I mentioned. And okay, he didn't come away with a title from those 4 days, but I think he'll be pleased with a lot of the performances that he put in across those 4 days. He had 800 plus averages, which was the most of anyone across the 4 days. He had 495 plus averages, but he kicked off each day with a ton plus average. And it's worth as well, okay, it's 12 months ago now, but it's worth just digging out those stats from last year at the Winter Gardens, last year's World Matchplay. This is from Sport Radar. Peter Wright had 104.91 tournament average, the fifth highest we've ever had in the World Matchplay. The semi-final against Michael van Gerwen, 110.37. That's the highest in a World Matchplay semi-final, seventh highest overall in any game on that stage. And okay, 5 days, that's a long time in darts between that Monday last Players Championship, the opening night in Blackpool, when he's going to play his first game. But I think Peter Wright will come through that tie, and you've got to give credit to Mads Rasmussen as well, because okay, he wasn't at his best the last lot of Pro Tours, but he was probably thinking about this race to the match play, wasn't he? Because he is someone that's been close to getting into this tournament a few times now. And okay, he didn't perform at his best in those last few events, but he did enough, and he deserves the spot in the field, making history for Latvia. And I do expect him to push Peter Wright in that game. Going beyond that, Johnny Clayton, Rowby-John Rodriguez. Again, Rowby-John Rodriguez, the last 2 weekends, that Euro Tour final, then this past weekend, getting into the spots, getting that last spot. And okay, we didn't see all his games. A lot of them weren't streamed, but he did look very focused on the task at hand. He picked up prize money each day, and even on the last day, kept the pressure on, Ross Smith and the chasing pack winning 2 games before going out to Peter Wright. But he's a player that's playing with a lot of confidence at the moment. And Johnny Clayton, I think he needed that run as well, getting to the final. He'll be happy with the response he's had. But I do get the feeling with these games as well, a lot of these players, they wouldn't have had a lot of experience of playing those session matches in leg play where you're playing 5 legs, you're going off, you're coming back on to play 5 legs, you're going off, and then you're playing to a conclusion. I think that's something that for a lot of these players, the debutants, they wouldn't have had a lot of experience. Okay, they've played World Championships before, apart from Martin Lukeman, but from a leg play perspective, if you drop a first session 4-1, 5-0, that's a lot different than losing the first set. So I think the first session is going to be important in all these games for the debutants. And for me, Martin Lukeman, I think he's got a shot against James Wade. He's not had the best of times in the match play over the last few years. Gerwin Price, you touched on him as well. It's not been the best of years for him so far, and we didn't see him play the last couple of days. So for me, I think that's a fair shout going with Martin Schindler. Beyond that, I'm probably looking at Martin Lukeman. I know he's not in the best of form at the moment, but I think he's someone that we've seen when he gets on a roll on stage, he can produce some good darts. So for me, I'll go with you. I'll go with Martin Schindler, but if I was to pick a second one, I'll go with Martin Lukeman.
That's a very good point you made about the first session. I remember back when Andrew Gilding made his debut now 8 years ago, he was 5-0 down at the intermission. Granted, Adrian Lewis was averaging, I think, 116 and going into that match, and ended up not even winning a leg when it was all said and done. So that's a fair point, how important that first session can be, because if you're down a lot, you might just end up getting whitewashed. But now we'll move on to our second of 3 guests on this week's show. Wouldn't it be funny if it was with Andrew Gilding after I just said that? It's not. It's number 1, Peter Wright.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the reigning 2-time world champion, the world number 1, and this weekend starts the defence of his World Matchplay title, Peter Wright. Thanks for the time, Peter. How are you doing?
Very good, Alex. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure, and we're talking only 3 days before you'll be back on the Winter Garden stage, your first game in this year's World Matchplay. What are these last few days before playing in a major event like for you? Is it the same amount of nerves and excitement as before, or are you used to the build-up now?
I'm getting used to the build-up, to be honest. It's just mainly just packing all my stuff, all my outfits, getting them ready, what I'm going to wear for each round and stuff like that, or the potential player that I might play against. Just been getting that already, and then, I'll do a few hours on the board here and there, in between eating and cups of tea.
And although long-time darts fans that have seen you play at the Lakeside in the 90s, but it was the match play, that was one of the first times we saw you on TV in the PDC back in 2009. So what does this event, the World Matchplay, mean to you?
Well, the match play is obviously, it's iconic, isn't it? The place that you're playing with all the stars that have performed there, and it's just to win the trophy is another dream. But after the World Championships, the next thing on any other dart player's target is to try and win the World Matchplay, and lucky enough, I've won that. So, and been in the final before, so I know how to win it. I know what it takes, and I'm used to the heat on that stage. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, lots of good memories. And I was looking back that first time you played there, you had the blue shirt with the large snake on the front. This was a few years before your transformation into the snake bite we know now.
Yeah, that's obviously, that's, I've learned how to obviously win games now, as then, I was a bit more nervous, I think, and fresh, and maybe then I don't know how to handle the cameras and stuff on TV, and the heat, obviously, as well as. So, but, I'm used to all that now. Just get out there, throw the darts.
Well, let's fast forward. We last had you on our show just after you won your second world title start of this year. This time round, you've been able to celebrate it properly, be paraded around as a world champion. Is there anything you've been able to do, or places you've got to go to this year as world champion and you thought, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, obviously getting picked to go to New York and go in Copenhagen, that was good to go back there again. But as the reigning champion, the world champion, I should say, that was really good. So Obviously, just gutted that I haven't performed like the world number one and world champion. But I'll change that in the next week.
Good to hear. Well, this year we've seen a return to that busy schedule like it was before the pandemic, and there's been talk about players managing their schedule. You are someone that we would always see playing everything, but we've seen you skip a few events this year. So how challenging has it been to juggle the playing and getting rested when you need it?
Well, it's very difficult. It's great that we've got all these tournaments. It's grateful to Barry Hearn and Eddie and Matt Poor, all the guys behind the scenes that put on all these tournaments for players to potentially win lots of money. But as an elite player playing, a league, we both do it. We have 4 tournaments and Europeans. It's it is draining here. Even though like a fit player like Eddie, even old a lot after try and pick and choose. Obviously, if I want my career to last a lot longer, as in energy-wise and performing-wise, I'll have to cut down a little bit here and there and pick my tournaments and make sure I'm fresh for obviously like the Man and the World Championships.
And you mentioned that World Series in New York. I've got to mention the outfit for that one as well. Snakebite taxis. It got me thinking to what is my favourite outfit that you've worn on stage, and I still think that one for your first World Final 2014 is up there with the matching shirt and trousers. But what have been your favourites?
Oh, well, I think that taxi one was really good. I liked the one at Blackpool quite a few years ago when I'd like the popcorn and milkshakes and hot dogs and stuff like that on the side of my head and on the trousers. Yeah, I like that one. But I didn't like that it being painted on. It took 4.5 hours. So only bit I didn't like. But and then there was the other one I'll see when I played Phil Taylor and in the final with the pineapples. And the people in the crowd were singing, he's got a pineapple on his head. It was quite funny, yeah.
Well, as we mentioned, the travelling's been picking up again with the return of the Premier League, with the new format this year. You couldn't have asked for a better start in that first week, winning the title. But what was the reaction among the players for this new format as it got underway those first few weeks?
I think we all liked it at first. Potential playing 3 times a night. The fans get to see potentially their favourite player maybe 3 times, as well as it was good practice, very good practice for going into Europeans and just other tournaments like that, because you're playing the best players in the world and you've just won like a mini tournament. And later on it's obviously with all the other tournaments that you've got clashing in between and that it does sort of tire you out, because you had to, instead of getting there, say you would be last game on, you get there at 6 o'clock and play at 9 or 9:30, everyone was getting there for just about 3 o'clock. So you're doing that every week, so that preparation tells on the players in the end.
And you were in the top 4 for a lot of the season. You just missed out on the playoffs in the end. Joe Cullen with that masterclass on double 16 in that winner-take-all game. How gutted were you to miss out? Because I know that the Premier League, that was a title this year that you were focusing on ticking off your list.
Yeah, the better player won, definitely on the day, and he performed fantastic in the semis and the final. He was unlucky not to win it. To be honest, I would have been probably mentally drained for that semi-final, so maybe it was a good thing. But I've learnt from this year, if it's the same format, next year I'll probably cut out all the Europeans while the Premier League is on, and then just focus on that. So I'm fresh. So that'd be the plan.
Well, away from the Premier League, we did see you tick off a big milestone earlier this year, becoming world number one for the first time. I remember you saying a few years ago you would get to number one in the world. So what is it like seeing your name at the top of the rankings now?
It's really good, but I'm performing rubbish. So it's good. He's number two in the world. Both of us are not performing that good, you know. But I'm sure we'll both get back on it very soon and prove why I'm number one and why he's number two, and we'll be battling it out for the rest of the year, I think. So, I think we're turning the corner now. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Gezi there, because the start of this year, the battle between you two for that number one spot was great to follow, and I remember you two playing each other in one of the Euro Tour finals with that number one spot on the line. What was that feeling like, playing in a game like that with the number one ranking up for grabs?
Yeah, that was good. You know, that's I thought we was going to do that more often this year than we have, and unfortunately we haven't. As you know, Gezi's gone off the ball, and I've done the same. As I say, hopefully both of us will turn that corner, and we'll prove to the world while we're up there. So fingers crossed.
Well, let's get back to the match play, and I've seen a few people saying that this is the most wide open match play for you. How would you assess your form going into it? I know you didn't pick up a title in Barnsley last week, but there were some good signs, a lot of 100+ averages. Where do you feel your game's at going into it?
I think it's probably better than last year. I'm looking forward to it. I had the weekend off in European. I knocked that on the head and to prepare for it. And went to Barnsley just to see where my game was ready for the match play. And I'm pretty happy with it. There's a few little tweaking bits to do, and I should be ready. And I think obviously performance last year, I think I performed better. I think I learned more 180s in my finish and being more clinical this year than it was last year. So fingers crossed I'll pick up the trophy at the end of it.
Yeah, last year it was the gold darts which took you to the title in Blackpool, that impressive 104 average for the tournament. Have you decided on your setup for Saturday yet, or are you still undecided?
Yeah, well at the moment I've decided, but you know me, if I wake up that morning and my head tells me to use something else, I'll use something else. So it's normally pretty good judge.
Well, of course, you've won some of darts' most prestigious titles the last 12 months, none bigger than our tip of the year for saying that you'd win the match play last year. Have you got a tip for us which could end up going into the nominations for this year's award?
I believe I'll win the match play again, so I'll retain my title.
Good man. Well, sticking with the match play, there are two players that I wanted to bring up with you. One of those is Andrew Gilding, who has had a remarkable turnaround this year after a difficult first year back with a tour card last year. You've played him at the match play before. He's also local, being from East Anglia. What have you made of his return to form these last 6 months?
I guess he's fed up playing the PlayStation, and he's played all his games, and he's decided to go out and play darts again. he's always been a quality player, but it's just he likes playing on the computer and stuff like that. So it's good to see that and Andrew's showing the world what he can do. He's hit some really good averages, and he's taken some big scouts, and obviously got to the final as well with the Pro Tour. So very dangerous man, and obviously he's had the experience of being up on the match play before, so he won't feel strange going up there at all. So he's very dangerous.
He's definitely caught the eye. And the other one I wanted to mention was Rowby-John Rodriguez. He's making his debut in Blackpool, and we've seen him rev up the crowd when he's on for a 180 before he throws his last start, and it reminded me of when you used to do it during your run to the first world final when you were on an important double. It's great showmanship, which I'm sure you'd be proud of.
Yeah, he's the whole family of all the brothers, they're all quality dart players, and it's good that he's had a lot of personal problems in his life, which has affected his darts, because he was a quality player before years ago, and now he's come back and he's showing the world what
he can do. Plus, he's a TV player as well. He's a showman, which, you know, that means he's not nervous. He don't care who he plays, and he's still young. So very dangerous.
And lastly, back to you. You said to us last time before your daughter's wedding there was one song which would have made you get up and leave. So we have to ask, how did the day go, and did the DJ play Don't Stop the Party?
I told them not to do it, but they did put it on.
Oh no!
And I refused to go in. Everyone else was doing it instead, doing a dance.
Brilliant. Hopefully we'll see you do those moves this weekend. Peter, it's always a pleasure, and good luck with the defence of your World Matchplay this week.
Okay, thank you, Alec. Cheers. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks again to Peter for joining us. Now moving on, it's World Matchplay time, which can only mean one other thing. It's prediction time. I want a dark horse, I want your 2 finalists, and who lifts the Phil Taylor Trophy a week from now on Sunday. Also, who's going to win the women's event. I don't know, is there a name for that trophy yet?
We said it should be called the Stacey Bromberg Trophy, so hopefully the PDC will listen and get that sorted for us.
I forgot that. Yes, it should be. It definitely should be. So give me your prediction for the Stacey Bromberg Trophy as well.
Right, let's start with the dark horse then, and this is very tough. I was looking at what people are saying on social media, and there's a lot of talk about that second quarter of the draw, and a lot of the big names in there. You've got the likes of Michael van Gerwen, Adrian Lewis, Joe Cullen, Damon Heta, James Wade, Martin Lukeman, Luke Humphries, Nathan Aspinall. That is such a tough quarter of the draw to pick from. So for me, if I'm going to go for a dark horse, I'm probably looking at the bottom half of the draw, and someone that we affectionately know as the handicapper's nightmare. I'm going to go with Daryl Gurney. He's 100 to 1 with the title sponsors Betfred. And for a player that's won 2 major titles in the past, I think that is a massive price. And we talked about players that you maybe didn't want to draw if you're an unseeded player. Gary Anderson was probably one of the players that the unseeded players would have more fancied to get. And okay, we all know that Gary Anderson could turn up and have another special week and win this tournament again, play near to his best. But if we're going off the last few years, it's probably more unlikely than it is likely. So I think that's a nice draw for Daryl Gurney to maybe get off the mark in that first round. And then it's either Danny Noppert or Brendan Dolan. And okay, we can't really write off either of those 2 players, maybe 2 of the most underrated players in the PDC going up against each other in that first round game. But I think Daryl Gurney's got a shot at getting through that one as well. And then it could maybe be Michael Smith in the quarterfinals. And over a long format, once he's got a couple of wins under his belt, maybe it could be a Daryl Gurney going even further. So he's going to be my dark horse for the unseeded players to maybe get through. But as far as a final for the World Matchplay, I'll pick out my semi-finalists as well. And I'll go with Rob Cross to make it through that third quarter of the draw. And he's going to go up against Michael Smith in a battle of the former World Cup teammates. And I'm going to go with Michael Smith to win that one, make a second World Matchplay final. Top half of the draw, second quarter, I'll get that one out of the way because it's such a tough one to call. But I'm going to go with an outsider for this one. I'm going to go with Nathan Aspinall to make the semi-finals, and he'll play Johnny Clayton in that semi-final in the top half of the draw. And I'm going to go with the Ferret to get through to his first World Matchplay final. And I think if we were to get a Johnny Clayton, Michael Smith final, if you were to offer it now to a lot of people, you'd say yes, please, because if they can serve anything like they did at Ali Pali at the end of last year, then we'll all be going home very happy from the end of the tournament. But as far as a winner, I think it's going to happen. We keep saying it all the time, either myself or you, Burton, but I'm going to back it this time again. I'm going to go with Michael Smith to get that first major title at the World Matchplay a week on Sunday. And as far as the Women's World Matchplay prediction, I've got to say I'm a little bit surprised to see the format best of 7 legs in the first round. I know that's the same as the Women's Series early rounds, but for a TV event, that does seem quite short to me, and probably does open up the potential for more upsets if one of the outsiders like a Katie Sheldon or a Chloe O'Brien are going against the top 2 seeds. The pressure is going to be on Lisa Ashton, Fallon Sherrock to perform, get out the gate quick, and we could see some nervy first round games there. But I think the stage experience will win through this time, and I do think we get that dream final, if you like, Lisa versus Fallon, and best of 11 legs. The only thing I can hope for is that it does go all the way. It goes 5-all in a deciding leg, and yeah, we'll make a prediction. I think Fallon will get off to a strong start. Lisa's going to find a 180 from somewhere, get back in the leg, and she'll get a poke at a finish, maybe 2 singles to a double, 1 dart at the double, and she gets that double to win the title. So Michael Smith, Lisa Ashton, they are my World Matchplay champions for this year.
Well, I can make two guarantees. I can guarantee you that neither Michael Smith nor Lisa Ashton are winning the title because I'm also picking them.
No.
So it's absolutely ruined for both of them. There's no way either of them can, since we both are tipping them. But I am taking a slightly different route to get there, at least for Michael Smith. Because his first round match is definitely a potential bogey. Andrew Gilding is in phenomenal form. And I think the winner of that match can go far in this tournament, even if it's Andrew Gilding. But then again, even who gets through that is probably going against Dirk van Dijvenbode in the second round, because Ryan Searle is struggling a bit right now. But man, Dirk van Dijvenbode has looked good this year. And he looks like a player who's ready to put that World Grand Prix runner-up to shame and take it one step further and win a major trophy at some point, and some point soon. It is a brutal draw for Michael Smith. But the big thing for Michael Smith is that I think he's been doing it right for the last month or so. He was dominant, winning those back-to-back Players' Championship events, winning the night in the Premier League, winning the World Series event in New York. He looked like the best player in the world. And when we had Christopher Kempf on, he said, right now, he's the best player in the world. I disagreed, but I thought he was the second best at that time. I still thought Johnny Clayton was the best then. Johnny Clayton's regressed a little since then. I don't think Michael Smith has regressed. I think he realized that he needed a break, or at least a little bit of a break, because he knew you can't really get much better than what he did over those couple weeks. But he also didn't want to come into the match play rusty. And that's why we saw him play in the Players' Championships this week, but skip a couple of the Euro Tours, skip some of the other stuff. I don't think he was... I could be wrong, and he could say differently, but from what I saw when I was watching him, I think he was playing those matches just to stay match sharp, not to go in. I mean, if he won the title, great, but I don't think he was going in necessarily thinking, I need to win one of these 4 titles. I think he went in thinking, I just need to stay sharp and get some matches so that I am where I was a few weeks ago and ready for the World Matchplay. And I think if that's the case, he has done exactly what he needed to do by playing those matches just to make sure that he had match sharpness. He is more mature than he's ever been, and he's better than he's ever been. And this is his week. Well, except for the fact that we're both picking him, so it cannot be his week. But other than that, this would be his week. As far as for the semifinal, well, that's where my dark horses come in. Because I've talked about Martin Schindler earlier. I still think he's a dark horse. I still think he can beat Gerwyn Price. But also Dave Chisnell, who, okay, he's a seed, but he's the 15 seed. And if things go to form, you'd think based on seeding he'd lose. But he's playing pretty well right now. Whoever gets through that Dave Chisnell-Martin Schindler match, I think should be the favorite in their quarterfinal against any of the 4 potential players that they could meet. And that's not to insult any of those 4. I just think right now Dave Chisnell and Martin Schindler are playing better than those 4. So I'm going to throw those 2 out as my dark horse, at least in this half of the draw. There's a few others. I mean, Dirk van Dijvenbode and Andrew Gilding certainly are dark horses. And if one of them ended up in the final, I wouldn't be all that surprised. But I'm still going with Michael Smith in the bottom half. For the top half, I'm not going Johnny Clayton right now. I think there are question marks in his game right now. I think he will write that. I think he's too good and too confident in his abilities now to let it be a long-term slide. But I think right now his game's not where it needs to be to make the final. Might not even be where it needs to be to beat a surging Rowby-John Rodriguez. From the top half, though, I'm going to go for, player who probably is the favorite in the top half right now, Luke Humphries. I just think Luke Humphries is playing that well. And as good as a Michael Smith-Johnny Clayton final would be, a Michael Smith-Luke Humphries final has the potential to be the match of the year because they are the 2 best players over the last couple months. Luke Humphries has been the best player all year on stage. Michael Smith has been, the best player all year on stage too. That would be an amazing final. For a dark horse, though, from the top half, is there really a dark horse here? It's just such a brutally good field that is Peter Wright a dark horse? Can you call the defending champ and world number 1 a dark horse? Maybe you can, just because of how brutally difficult this top half of the draw is. I'm not going to pick a dark horse from the top half. I've picked 4 from the bottom half. I'm going for a Luke Humphreys against Michael Smith final and Michael Smith to win it. And as I said, I'm agreeing with you on the women's side, but I think Lisa Ashton wins it a little bit more comfortably. Fallon Sherrock has been struggling recently. We don't know which Fallon Sherrock we're going to get, but we do know which Lisa Ashton we're going to get. It's a player who can and will beat anyone in this field. I think she averages close to, if not north of 90, and she wins 6-2 or 6-3.
For a second there, I thought you were going to do what you did, I think, the World Championship last year when you picked basically 8 or 16 players as your dark horse from one section of the draw. But I guess what we can say is congratulations, Andrew Gilding, Chloe O'Brien, on your first round wins in the World Matchplay and based on our predictions. But we've got some questions to get to from our listeners in a moment. But first, let's hear from one of those debutants in the World Matchplay. Here's our chat with Rowby-John Rodriguez.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one of the debutants in this year's World Matchplay, Rowby-John Rodriguez. Thanks for the time. How are you doing?
Hi, mate. I'm fine, thank you.
And it's only been 2 days since the cut-off for the World Matchplay. You secured the last spot in the field for Blackpool. What have the last few days been like for you as you prepare to make your debut in another of the biggest tournaments in darts?
It was sleepless nights and nervy days for me, but I'm happy because in the beginning of the month or 3 weeks before, I was not far away, but I needed a good run somewhere, and because of the final of the European Tour, I was in a position where I can qualify, and that makes it was harder to recognize it, but end of the week I am in, so that's the main point.
Definitely. Well, we'll come back to the match play, but there's lots to catch up on with you since we last had you on the show around this time last year, and we've got to start with the World Cup last year. You and Metsuluvic going all the way to the final. What memories come to mind when you think back to that week?
We wasn't both in the... I played many tournaments before, but I know Menzo had some problems with himself and was not playing many tournaments in that period of time. And I just remember Thursday he said, "Rob, you have to carry me. You're the number one now. You played some tournament. You're gonna start. You're gonna pull up." And I said, "Menzo, no, you're still the number one of us. I still look up to you, and you do still everything. Pull and start the game." And because we won the first game, that relaxed him a little bit. In the second game, he was on fire against Belgium, and I just finished the job against Dimitri. But that gives us a little bit boost. The first 2 rounds, let's say, was helping us our confidence to build back, or his confidence, because I was having a good year anyway. And it was a really good tournament for us.
Win against Northern Ireland in the quarterfinals sticks out. You and Mensah winning that pairs decider 4-3 to make that final session, and Mensah crawling on the stage, you sliding on your knees. What was that moment like?
Yeah, he lost his single match. He was disappointed. He was when he came back, his head was down, and I told him, "I'm gonna beat Darrell. I'm gonna beat him. Practice for the doubles. Trust me." And still, he didn't practice in the back room, I think. But I beat Darrell, and we managed to win against in the doubles. It was nerve-cracking game, and I missed doubles. Finish it off, I think, earlier, but it was. I was on my knees, because the pressure was off. We won the game, and he was calling to me. We both don't know what he done there, because I was just kneeling on myself, and the all pressure came off, and he was just, "Okay, let's call to him."
Well, I'm English, but even I had to tip my hat to you two for that performance in the semi-finals. 109 average for Mensah, 102 average for you. You both win 4-1 to knock England out and make the final. What was that time like between that game and then going up to play in your first World Cup final?
Yeah, the year before we lost. Mensah won the singles. I think it was Michael Smith the year before, and I lost against Rob Cross, and I missed so many doubles in the single game already to beat them in the quarters, I think it was. And I told him, now it's our time, because we have Bill open. No, should we say Bill open? We have get some revenge, and I was hitting Mensah won his singles really with a high standard, and I was finishing well against it was Cheese, I think, and my finishing on that in that game was just phenomenal. So it was great win, and I knew we both, because of this win, we both are in the Grand Slam. And afterwards, I told him, we're in the Grand Slam. You know that. I mean, we're in the final, yes, but that means also we're in the Grand Slam final. In the Grand Slam qualified. And he said, really? Yeah. So we both qualified because of that, and because I didn't have a tour card in that year, and I couldn't play the qualifiers so that was the only chance for me to qualify for the Grand Slam. We managed the final, so I was in, he was in. It was great, and then the final, unfortunately, didn't went our way, but we had our chances. We should have beaten them in the doubles, and we missed doubles there to get 3-1 up, I think. And then it wasn't not going anything in our direction afterwards.
Yeah, as you say, that the final against Scotland didn't go your way, but you did get in the Grand Slam for that run to the final. First time for you in that event since 2015, and this time you make it through the groups, beat Stephen Bunting in that winner-takes-all game. And you said to us last time about how much you were enjoying your darts last year. Did performances like that show that as well?
Definitely. Like I said, the private life is really good at the moment. I'm happy. I'm having fun playing darts. The results are coming back. My confidence is building. So everything together keeps you performing good. And I still have that. I mean, I was unlucky at the World that I finished 65th in the rankings. So I had to go back to Q school, but I had some luck in the Q school in the ranking. It was all. I was. Sometimes you're unlucky, sometimes you're lucky. So it was hard time, I'm in a good mood.
Good to hear. And you mentioned the World Championships there. You just fell short, one win short of getting into that top 64. And after such a good year that you had without that tour card, what was it like getting yourself ready for Q school again?
In the beginning, it was hard because of Corona. Some players were in the World Championship who didn't qualify, and that cost me. I mean, end of the day, it's my fault because I didn't win my second game against Luke, I think it was. I should have it in my own hands, but because of some circumstances, I was kicked out of the top 64. So it means to me I have to go back to Q school. But I was confident after, let's say, week or 2 weeks later after the World, I was focusing again for the Q school, and I knew I would get it because I was playing good. But Q school is hard. It's just 4 days, and you have to perform there. You have to be lucky there with the draw and stuff like that. And I was happy that my points was enough for the tour card.
We had your manager Mick Lang on the show after Q school, and he told us the story of that dramatic final day as you waited to find out if you'd done enough to win back your tour card. He said you even went to bed as well. So what was that moment like when you found out that you had got your tour card back?
It was. I was really sleeping, and my girlfriend called me. My manager Mick came to the room. I couldn't handle it. Everybody was watching on the phone, and I was thinking I can't do anything now. So I got to bed. I was relieved that everything went on my side after the good year I had, and after the unlucky circumstances I have from the World. But I was relieved that I have a tour card for the next 2 years.
As a player, is there anything harder than something like that when your fortune is essentially out of your own hands? You've got to wait to see how other games play out.
Definitely, because it's always better if you have it in your hands, and if you have to rely on some results, it is hard to take because you have to watch it. You're counting all the points, and you just have to wait. So everybody done that for me, and I just said, okay, I'll go to bed.
Well, on to this season, your first year back with that tour card, and fair to say that you've made your mark on the Euro Tour, 2 quarterfinals, even before that run to the final a few weeks ago. How much have you enjoyed those runs and the scalps that you've picked up on the way?
Yeah, I still, like I said, I'm playing good. I'm playing with confidence. I'm playing with fun, and there's with that 2 quarterfinals. quarterfinals, it was hard for me to get over the quarterfinal because it was a new situation for me to play, let's say, midday, and then you have a big break and play at night again. So I was asking some players, the top players, what are you doing to help me out? What are they doing to be ready again at night? And I tried some different stuff. That 2 tournaments didn't work out for me, but I played all right. In my opinion, just Bodum was better. And in Trier at the last European, I was ready for the night session, and I came over the quarterfinals. So I told Mick, this is the first time I came over the quarterfinals against Nathan, and it was a hard draw in Trier from the beginning on, and in the semi-final I played against Marcus Rasma, and that was the point where I think, okay, this game, I think I am the better player, or it's my game to lose now. The other games I was the underdog, but I managed to win them. Yeah, so for me the hardest game was definitely the semi-final.
Well, what a run it was to get to that first Euro Tour final. We've got to talk about, and I mentioned it, the showman shot, as I'm calling it, 2 treble 20s, then you rev up the crowd for more noise before throwing that third dart. We saw you do it at the World Cup as well, but where did the inspiration first come to do something like that?
On stage, if the crowd of celebrating every treble, I was just thinking, okay, let's do this. And I've done it in some exhibitions already, but I'd never ever thought to myself that I will do it on stage. But it is working for me. If it's in, everybody loves it. If it's not in, it is close. It's not that far away. But I just feel for myself that is helping me to relax the last dart, because years ago my last dart was the problem in my throw. So for me, there's a little bit of break time and focus again for the last dart. So because sometimes the last dart is the most important dart, and if you're pulling it or snatching it, it's one dart who could make a title or not a title. So it is helping me. I'm not doing it for, of course there's a little bit for the crowd, because they love it, but if it's not helping me, or if it's getting me out of my concentration, I wouldn't do it. But I have fun, like I said, in playing darts, and I was thinking I'll have to give them something back, and it is working.
Yeah, we're enjoying seeing it, and we remember Peter Wright doing it a few years ago at Ali Pali when he was breaking through the crowd. Loved getting involved with him on the doubles. What's the reaction been like from your fellow pros? Because we've seen Gerwen, Price, Luke Humphreys, they've tried doing it as well when you've played them, but has there been anyone that's maybe took exception to it?
No. Even if it is their problem that they have disturbed them, because it's my throw, so I can do what I want to do, and but they do it just we have some fun, even if we are competing on the biggest stage of them all. There's a little bit of fun, and they try to do it. Nobody hits it against me, but I always smiled, and they smiled. I gave them a fist bump too. For me, it's alright if they tried as well, and it's cool because, like I said, you have to have some fun and give the crowd something to show to give it back.
You and Luke, you served up one of the matches of the year in that Euro Tour final. You almost won it, missing that match start in the decider. But coming off the stage that night, what were the main emotions you were feeling after a weekend and the run that you'd had?
It was between disappointment and happiness or proud to reach the first final for me, for myself. But also disappointment to lose the final. Even if you have a match right, you want to win it. And if that match went in, I would be a European champion. I would be secured for the World Matchplay. I wouldn't be that under pressure from the last week. Would put me. Yeah, you can call yourself a champion afterwards. But like I said, it was hard to take. But I didn't have so much time to relax, because after a few days later it was the European qualifiers again and the Pro Tour to make the World Matchplay. But after now, I am really proud of myself. It just there have to be, in my opinion, it is good that there's a disappointment, because if there's no disappointment, you will never ever win a tournament, because I want to win tournaments, and I think that also was good for my head, that okay, you're not enough, the second place is not enough for you, and you reach a final, and you can do it anytime again.
Yeah, definitely a good sign. And as you say, you go into that last lot of Pro Tours before the cut-off for the match play on the cusp of those spots, and you bring out your best run on the floor this year with that run to the quarterfinals on the first day, which moves you into the spots. Did a run like that take some of the pressure off going into those last few days?
No, a little bit, yes, because I was the guy who they have to catch for, and not 100%, because I was in a similar position 6 years I think ago, and I just missed out the World Matchplay because of, I think it was comeback, and I knew, okay, even if on the last day, if I'm early out and they came to let's say quarterfinals or semi-final and they have the comeback, it's their age. So until to the last dart, until everybody was out, there was no relief or pressure off.
Going into that last event, you then picked up a couple of wins before going out to Peter Wright, and then it's another wait to see if you'd done enough. Did you stick around in the venue this time, or did you get away and go to bed again?
I did go out of the venue. I wanted to get the taxi as soon as possible to sleep, because I would drive with the taxi to Manchester Airport, and I would definitely sleep there. But there was no taxi for me, so I had to wait outside. But I lay down outside, and I had a nap as well outside of the venue. But still I couldn't really relax. But as soon as some players went out, I knew from the venue, I knew, okay, there are not many people anymore who can catch me up. So I had a look, and it was, I think in the last two players was Vincent, and as Vincent went out, it was only meant to catch me if he wins a tournament. So there was a little bit of relief after I knew, okay, only Mensa can catch me, because I knew one of us is going to the World Matchplay, and we're in the same management with Mick, so I told Mick, you're definitely going, and it was one of us. But Mensa lost then to Demonetta, and I was having a bowl of water in my hand, and I just poured it over my head and called my girlfriend and told her I've done it, and I was relieved.
Good times. Yeah, Mensa was the last one, as luck would have it, that could have caught you, but he went out in the quarterfinals. And you mentioned it, you came so close to getting in the World Matchplay 6 years ago, just missed out. So how good did it feel when you found out that you'd done enough this time round?
It was, like I said, 3 weeks ago I wouldn't even think about it. To be fair, I already planned doing this week the floor in the house. So now I have, instead of a week off, I have 2 days to do the floor. But it is what it is. Like I said, I would love to have some days off, but some players want to play the World Matchplay, and I've done it, so I have to do the job at home, but I will be back on the stage again. So, and I am really proud of me. What I've achieved in the last 6 months, in the first 6-7 months this year, after the great run, after the great year from last year, I kept on practicing, I kept on doing, getting good results, and here I am. In the first half of the season, I'm in the World Matchplay.
Yeah, things are going well. You made the match play. You're going to make your debut this weekend. You're pushing towards that top 64 again. When you're on a run like this, do you have time to reflect, or is it all focus on the next event, trying to build on what you've achieved so far this year?
In the last 3-4 weeks was immense. I've achieved a lot of stuff, starting from the Euros in May, I think it was. So with the two quarterfinals, stuff like that. There was a little bit of relaxing time and realizing what I've achieved, but I'm still hungry. I'm not happy. I'm happy with how much I achieved, but there's still more to come, and I want more, and it gives me the feeling I am one of the best players in the world, and I can beat, like I said in another interview already, I think I can beat everybody.
You've definitely been proving that. Rowby, congratulations again on the run to the final on the Euro Tour. Congratulations on getting to the World Matchplay, and we wish you all the best for that debut this weekend and what else is to come in 2022.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks again to Rowby for joining us, and we've got a bonus guest on this week's show. Before we get to our listener questions, here's our final guest on this week's show. It is with the former two-time back-to-back world champion, a player back in the World Matchplay this year. Here's our chat with Adrian Lewis. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former two-time back-to-back champion of the world, Adrian Lewis. Thanks for the time, Adrian. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks, Alex. Yeah, all good here, mate. I'm looking forward to the week ahead.
Good to hear. And yeah, we're talking now only 3 days before you'll be back on the Winter Garden stage to play in the World Matchplay. How much are you looking forward to being back involved in this event, one of the biggest there is in the PDC?
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, obviously going into last week's Pro Tours, knowing that, try to stay ahead of the field and the qualifying criteria. I knuckled down and did my job, really. So, yeah, really proud of that.
We'll come on to look back on that title win in the last week, but it's been a little while since we had you on the show towards the end of 2017, so a little bit to catch up on. And, yeah.
I didn't realise it was that long ago.
It's been a while, and well, 2018, that was the first year that we saw you miss out on the Premier League and the World Cup for a little while. Obviously, the World Cup, you won it 4 times, the Premier League, you made the playoffs a few times, you've thrown those 9 darters. So for that first year, how tough was it to initially miss out on those events?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, nobody wants to miss any event really, but it is what it is. I don't think COVID helped causes really more than anything else. I think that had a lot to do with it as well. I think I got myself back into the top 16 in the world rankings, and caught COVID not to miss, the Grand Prix and the European. So that was a bit of a blow. But it's the same for everybody. If you look back like MVG, for instance, missing the World Championships. Just things like that, really, which you can't do anything about.
Yeah, it's definitely affected a lot of players, and we look back at 2020 as a year that no one will forget. For you, as someone who's been on the road for 15 plus years, what was it like suddenly then being stuck at home?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was all right. I thought, it's all right. It's not too bad. You're spending time with the family and that. This is great. And then after a couple of weeks, you're itching to get back at it again. Yeah. So, yeah, it was difficult, really.
And one of the first events back after the break was the World Matchplay. That year, of course, being behind closed doors. We know you're someone who thrives off the crowd, the atmosphere. So how strange was it playing with no fans in the building?
Yeah, it wasn't good at all, to be honest. I mean, the PDC did the best job to, put the crowd noise in, the artificial noise. But it's nothing like the real thing. You can't beat the crowd. I mean, the crowd make it, don't they? So
definitely. And I remember that tournament after you beat Steve Beaton in the first round. You said you felt that might be your last World Matchplay if you didn't knuckle down. Why was that?
I just felt like it was. That's what I thought. Beforehand, I thought that that might be. This might be my last one, obviously, with regards to the rankings and everything else. You never know, do you, see? So, like I say, you have to knuckle down and just keep plodding on.
At the end of that year, we see you back winning on the big stage start of 2021, knocking out Michael Smith, Gary Anderson to make the final day of last year's Masters. At the time, did you feel like that could be the kickstart for your comeback?
It was weird, that was, because I didn't know that they'd changed the play, because normally it was I think it was it the top 16, wasn't it, the Masters, and then it was literally but it must have only been probably wasn't even a week, and my wife said, you better go on the practice pool. I said, why is that? I said, because you're in the Masters, because they changed it to the top 24 then. So, like I say, it was just thrown up on me. So, yeah, I was quite chuffed, get where I got in that tournament.
Fast forward to the end of last year, we saw you in the Players' Championship finals on that main stage. You get past Kim Hybrex, and I think after it was to Stuart Pyke, you said, I haven't got to right any wrongs, I've just got to believe in myself. Has it been a lack of belief which you think has maybe held you back?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I think, like you say, confidence plays the biggest part in my opinion. In this, I think I would say 95% in your head. Doesn't matter how naturally or what ability you've got. If your head's not on it, or your head's not right in the right place, you don't seem to perform. And I think that's the key. That's the key aspect to making sure you're right mentally.
Well, the next round, you and Peter Wright go all the way to a decider. Peter said afterwards he wanted to see you back in the Premier League where you belong, but the game probably remembered for the argument you two had on stage afterwards. Peter said it was about Christmas cards. If so, did he send you one?
No, he apologised to me, and then I said, obviously, I apologised to him as well for blasting him on Twitter, which I thought, at the thought at the time it was the right thing to do, but, it is what it is, and we move on.
Yeah. Glad to hear it. Well, after losing to Gary Anderson, your old rival, in 4 sets at Ali Pali, there was that long break before the new season started this year. So how was that break for you, and what were the goals coming into this year?
I don't mean, obviously, my goal is to, just play as many tournaments, try and enjoy it, I think. That's just my goal. Just enjoy it, I think. And what'll be, will be. I didn't set myself any particular, goals as such. I just want to go up there and enjoy it more than anything else.
Well, it looked like you enjoyed that first round of the UK Open this year, that 108 average in the first round. When you put in performances like that, that must give you belief that maybe a big run is just around the corner.
Yeah, it was, going into the UK Open, I felt like my form was, gradually picking up around that time. And I played the young German lad, and to be honest, I played really well. I don't know what my average was, it was high. And then I played Ryan Searle on the sideboards, obviously him being a local lad as well. So he had all the crowd, and it was, it was a tough game, to be honest. At one stage, I can remember throwing at 161, and at the treble 20, at the treble 17, I'm just throw at the bullseye, and somebody, obviously with the crowd being so close, shouted, "Don't worry, Ryan, you'll miss." You know what I mean? That's what it was like all the way through the game, though. The barricade on that day, but it is what it is, and like you say, he support the local lads, so fair play to him, really.
Well, then we come on to last weekend, the last events before the cut-off for the World Matchplay. You were in the spots going into the weekend, but what's it like in the venue on these weekends in particular when there is so much at stake?
Yeah, you could tell when I was talking to players, before they commenced, that there's a bit of nervousness in the air. But I just thought, well, you've just got to go up there and do the best you can, and it's helped really with the first day. I made the semis, which put a bit of a gap between. I think it was me and Ross Smith. I think it was at the time. So that was important. Make sure you get off to a good run. Yeah,
good start to the weekend with that semi-final, and a couple of days later comes the title. First round against Sean Wilkinson, one of the new tour card holders this year. You survived the match starts even that early on. Do you start to think it could be your day, or are you still taking it one game at a time?
No, because like I say, it was first round, and I don't know what happened, to be honest. What I tried to do, because I realised with the heat, because it was that hot, that the board seemed a lot softer than what they have been. So I thought I'd try a longer point and put a bit more grip on it, and then it was sticking to my fingers. I thought, no, I've got to change these back. So that's what happened there. And then all of a sudden, I think it was the first couple of games were a bit of, and then after that, I started, find some form.
Yeah, he definitely did. Once we get to the last 16, we see the performances rise up. 102, 99, 98, 103 averages for those last 4 games to close out the title. To produce that level, that must have given you so much satisfaction. Yeah,
definitely. Like I say, it just shows you then, when the work you put in, it's just nice that it comes together. And, it is good, yeah. Brilliant.
You mentioned the work that you've been putting in. Have you been doing anything differently the last few months?
No, not really. Just like I say, just more or less. To be honest, all I've been doing really is a lot of practicing on my finishing. Just the finishing side of the game, really. Like me combination shots, like from 80 to a ton. That kind of finishing.
Well, that was your 26th senior title in the PDC, first for a few years, and you said in your interview afterwards, "I can beat anybody, but I can also lose to anybody." Is that more of a reflection on the growing standard across the board, or?
I think so. As a whole, I think everybody's saying how much the standard's grown. I think what the difference is now, as from when I started, nearly 20 years ago now, as there was probably only an handful of us really who could hit an 100 average on a regular basis. Where now the top 128 can hit 100 averages. That's where the game's at the minute.
You then decide to head home early, missed the last day with your spot for the match play confirmed. Was it job done? Let's get some rest in before Blackpool?
I think so, yeah. I think with the heat as well, because like you say, it was 30 odd degrees outside and it was absolutely boiling in there. And I just thought, you know what, I might as well go home, have a couple of days with the family and get myself ready for the match play.
Well, this is going to be your 17th World Matchplay, back in the field after missing out last year. What does it mean to you to get back in this event, and is it a sign that you are on your way back?
I think so. I think over the past, certainly over the past 4 or 5 months, I've been having some big averages and just find that you find a bit more consistency. I think, instead of like averaging 90s and losing matches, if I can average, around the 100 mark consistently, and that's when I'll start picking up more titles.
Well, the draw was made on Monday evening. Were you one of the ones watching the draw live, or did you wait to find out after?
No, we watched it. My wife put it on. Was it Betfred or something? I think it was. So yeah, I think she put it on there. I think she found it on there somewhere. So yeah, we did watch it. Yeah.
And it's you and your old foe Michael van Gerwen in the first round. I think this will be the third time you've faced each other in Blackpool. The first one, 2013, still regarded one of the best ever games on that stage. 17-15 winning that semi-final. Is that one of your favourite wins you've had?
I think so. Yeah, it's up there. It's definitely up there. Yeah, it was like I say, it's the semi-finals, and obviously none of us wanted to lose. So it was a great game. That was. I missed doubles, a few early doors, and let him off a few times. Then he let me off at the end, missing that double 13.
Yeah, and I was looking back. John Gwynne was calling the action. I saw you were one of many to pay tribute to him after he passed away last week. What memories are going to stick with you with John?
Oh, there's too many. I mean, we've done a lot of exhibitions together, and he was just a top man. He really was. One of the stories I could tell you was we were having a game of snooker. John's only a small, was only a smallish bloke, and he got the rest out, and he threw it onto the snooker table, and I just see him laughing, and his tears coming down his eyes. I said, "What's up, mate?" He said, "I can't reach the rest." He really too far in front, so he couldn't reach the rest. And he was a top man, really was. He'd be missed.
Yeah, definitely will. And you mentioned the exhibitions. You're, of course, still one of the most popular players on the exhibition circuit. How good is it to be back playing those exhibitions again, meeting the fans?
I mean, that's all important parcel of I see to practice as well, because, you're in front of a crowd all the time, and it's good. It's great practice, really. Because when you're at home, you're on your own, you put some music on, and you just chill out, really. But when you're there, you've got to play, you've got to perform. That's what they pay the money for, so... It's good. It is good.
And obviously the focus will be on Blackpool this weekend, but looking ahead to the rest of the year, you're in a good place to get in a lot of the other major events. What are you really looking at for the rest of the year to try and achieve?
Yeah, I had a look at that. I'm in a good spot for the Grand Prix. I know that's not been my favourite event over the years, but I have made the final, so there's no reason I can't do it again. Have a good run. And
we can't go without mentioning your old pal Phil Taylor. He's back playing on TV again in the seniors. Did you catch much of it? What did you think?
I've seen little bits. I've seen the highlights on YouTube and so on. But he'll get there. You know what he's like. He ain't gonna give in, is he? Until he wins something again.
Has he tapped you up for a practice session like old times?
No. He lives probably about 40 minutes away from me now, so...
Well, Adrian, it's always a pleasure to catch up. We appreciate your time. Congratulations again on the title last weekend, and we wish you all the best for the World Matchplay and what else is to come this year.
No, nice one. All the best to you, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Adrian for joining us, and we'll finish up the show with some listener questions. We've got 3 to get through before we say goodbye, and the first one comes from Daniel Stapleton, who says, did Ryan Searle's admittance he watched Love Island last night have anything to do with his first round exit today?
I've seen part of one episode of Love Island because my flatmate, when I was living in the UK, was watching it, and sure, we'll go with that being the reason, because it definitely didn't draw me in. And I don't it's not my genre of television, It's actually, I wouldn't say big here in the U.S., but people know it. People have watched it here. I think it's on Netflix or something, or one of the other streaming sites, because there are multiple streaming sites in case you didn't know that. But sure, we'll go with that. What time is it even on?
Oh, that is a good question. I'm guessing probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock UK time.
That seems a little bit early, but he must have been really drunk to have watched it. So sure, we'll go with that. That was why. It had nothing to do with any other part of his preparation. Shame on you, Ryan, for watching on a match night.
Yeah, I don't watch it either, but one of our good friends of the show, Kirsty Hutchinson, I believe she's a fan, and when she mentioned she was watching it, I said that I'm going to be going in the villa, and her reply was, "Are you going in as a chef?" So yeah, killed me there on that one. But yeah, this talk about Love Island and darts is getting a bit out of hand now, isn't it? First, we had Mark Webster on Twitter saying he's watching it, and we did have a good laugh with him on the show about it last week, and he's brought it up again on Twitter this week about him watching it. But Matthew Edgar pointed out that Ryan Searle left the table on their Pro Tour table, whatever they were doing in Barnsley at the weekend, to watch Love Island, and the next day his seasonal average was 98. He goes and throws an 86 average in his first round game and loses. So I don't know. I think there maybe is a case there for not watching Love Island, because it does affect your game, and hopefully Ryan Searle will put some darts gold on instead to get himself in the mood for a tilt of the match play this week.
Well, I take that back. I'm going to watch it now. If it means I can average 86, I'll watch every episode. Our next question comes from Thomas. With such an incredible draw all round, which would you say is the tie of the first round, and why?
Oh, that is really hard, and I like the look of a lot of them really, and I'm gutted really. The first session Saturday night, I'm going to miss watching it live. One of the sessions I most look forward to each year is that opening night of the World Matchplay, but I'm going to be on a football pitch watching the Proclaimers instead. So it's not a bad second prize, but still you've got Johnny Clayton, Rowby-John Rodriguez, and Dimitri van der Berg, Callum Ridge. They jump off the page from that Saturday night, as does Gary Anderson, Daryl Gurney, Dirk van Dijvenbode, Ryan Searle, Dave Chisnell, Kim Ibrex. You know, the list goes on, doesn't it? Even Michael van Gerwen, Adrian Lewis. We've just seen Adrian Lewis win his first title in 3 years. And I think back to one of the best ever games we've seen at the Winter Gardens between those two, the semi-finals, 2013. That would be nice to see a little bit of that in the first round. But if I've got to pick one, and I'm going to go with one as my tie of the first round, I've got to go for Luke Humphries, Nathan Aspinall. Luke Humphries, he is one of the players of the year so far. He's got to be one of the contenders for our player of the year. And 4 European Tour titles already, a floor title as well. He's got a lot of plaudits this year. But I want to give a mention to Nathan Aspinall as well, give him some props, because last year he was knocking on the door of that second major title. He made the quarterfinals of the World Matchplay, made the playoffs of the Premier League again, got to the semi-finals of the European Championship. That was the weekend he had that injury, and he came on the show earlier this year, opened up about it, and it didn't sound good at all. But he's managed to come out the other side of that injury, and he looks like he is building again to having another serious crack at lifting one of these big titles. And that game for me, that's got all the makings of extra legs, maybe even a sudden death for me. So I'm going to go tie the round, Luke Humphries, Nathan Aspinall.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said on the first question we had discussing the World Matchplay, and just how good form pretty much all the Pro Tour qualifiers are in, mean that almost every single one of these ties is a potential for an upset and the potential to be a very good match. You did mention the man who had a dart to win the Premier League going against the number one Pro Tour qualifier, Joe Conn against Damon Hedda. Joe Collins he's been a little choppy at times this year, but he has only won a major and made a final of another one. And Damon Hedda won the World Cup. What a first round tie that is. Gurren Price, Martin Schindler, which I've talked about a few times today. Michael Smith, Andrew Gilding, which I've also talked about a few times today. Dirk van Dijvenbode, Ryan Searle. There's just so many really, really good ties this year, and really even or close to even or potentially even ties this year. And that's what makes this, I think, the most interesting draw we ever had, because it's just every one of these matches, with only a couple of exceptions, I really would not be surprised either way with the result. But I'm going to have to go for the tie of the round, being the one between the person that we both picked to win the title and the person who I would have been most scared to draw of the Pro Tour qualifiers, I have to go Michael Smith, Andrew Gilding, because I genuinely believe the Andrew Gilding we've seen right now is good enough to win this championship, not just this match. That has to be the tie of the round, because both of these players could average 110 and still lose.
That is a fair shout. Well, last question we've got for you comes from John Thompson, who says, who do you think is the most out of form player in the match play, and why is it Jose de Sousa?
Yeah, I mean, Jose definitely had a really, really bad week this past week, and it's I think the worst we've seen him. But for that, there were signs that he was starting to get back, not to looking like a major champion, but still a player who can steal a players' championship on any given day. And I think this past week is looks a little bit harsher on him than the rest of the year has been. But because of this field being so good and being in such good form, I think he may be the answer. Prior to this week, you could have said Christoph Ratajski, but Ratajski really did rebound at a time he really needed to rebound, to not just stay in the seeds, but also to start to write his season, because it's been the worst we've seen from Ratajski since before he was a Torquote holder. Remember, when he was not a Torquote holder, he won 3 titles that last year. It's really the worst we've seen from him since well back in the day. But again, a really good week that shows that maybe he's starting to find some form. Johnny Clayton had also been struggling for not nearly as long as Ratajski, but again, found some form. Beyond Jose, I might say Martin Lukman, but again, it wasn't that long ago that he made a Euro Tour final. Maters Razma, as I said earlier, he's still been able to find results. Adrian Lewis, haven't talked as much about him, really was fortunate to qualify for the World Matchplay, because if you go back on the first and third dates when he picked up all that prize money, he survived multiple match starts in the very first round on both those days before going to the semifinals and winning the title. But good and great players make their own luck, and he survived those and lifted his game. And now he's going to come in with some confidence that he otherwise wouldn't. Beyond that, he probably would have been one of the players most struggling, but he's now has that confidence, and he's shown that he still has that will and ability to find a way to win. And as I said, he played really well, especially the last few rounds on the way to the title on Sunday. So I think I'll agree that it is Jose de Sousa, but not by that much. Martin Lukman in that conversation as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Adrian Lewis as well, because you think back to 10 years ago and he was saying, I'm the best player in the world, and he wins this title this week, his first one in a little while, and he's saying, I can beat anybody, but I can also lose to anybody. So that shows you where he is with his game at the moment. But like you say, I think getting that title, no matter how he did it, will give him a lot of confidence going into the World Matchplay. And yeah, I think Jose de Sousa is probably out of the 32 players the one that is the most out of form. And you look at just this past weekend in Barnsley, I think his highest average was 93. And with all due respect to the players that he was playing, the games that he lost, okay, Simon Whitlock, he's just won a World Cup, but averaged 83 in that game, and the other 3 games he was losing to players. I think one of them is in the top 64. The other 2, John Worsley, Mickey Mansell. Okay, one of them's a new tour card holder, but both of those well down in the rankings. And this is a player that is a top 8 player in the world in the rankings, and someone that a little while ago we were saying is the best player in the world. And yeah, he's certainly dropped off quite a bit. Players that we talked about last week going into these tournaments that needed a run, and they did have those runs. Gabriel Clemens getting to a final, Brendan Dolan winning a title as well, and he was so honest in his interview afterwards, saying that going into that day, all he wanted to do was win one game, get through the first round. That was his target. So for him to get a title, I think he'll, again, a bit like Adrian Lewis, will have plenty of confidence. And the last one I mentioned, though, Gary Anderson as well, lost in the first round 3 out of the 4 days in Barnsley. And this is a player that he is outside the Pro Tour top 32. He doesn't play the European Tour, which is back to a full tour now, which I think is doing some damage, I think, for him in terms of these Players' Championship events, because if you're not going to go on deep runs in them as often as he did in the past, you're going to get tough draws. You're not going to be in that top 32. And we saw that he did get some difficult draws in those 4 days. And if you're not on it from the start, you are going to get found out. So I don't think he's going to be going into Blackpool with tons of confidence. But I think out of the 32, yeah, I think Jose is the answer to that one.
And it does remind me of something I don't think we've said before, but it really, really, really is amazing how Gary Anderson's been able to remain a top 10 player without playing the Euro Tour for so long. It really is impressive that he's been able to do that. But anything else for this week?
Well, as always, we have to say big thank you to our guests for joining us. Big thank you to our listeners as well. We appreciate their support. We don't say it often enough, but thank you to everyone that listens. And the numbers keep going up, so keep telling your friends about us. It does help us a lot. And to our sponsor Dartwolf as well, thank you to them. Go and check them out, dartwolf.tv, at dartwolf180 on Twitter. And with the World Matchplay as well, we should give a mention to our producer Hannah. She's going to be making the trip to Blackpool on that second weekend. She's going to be there at the Winter Gardens for the Women's World Matchplay, the first staging of that event. We're lining up some chats with some of the players involved in that tournament before, so keep an eye out. We're going to try and bring as much as we can from Blackpool that weekend, and if there's anyone you want to hear from as well, do let us know and we'll do our best to bring that to you. But Hannah, I hope you have a great time in Blackpool. Any of our listeners that are going, hope you have a good one as well. And if you're watching from home, get the refreshments ready, sit back, relax for these 9 days of darts, and most importantly of all, as Yella Clarkson says, but I say it the most, enjoy the darts.
Yes, and it does make me realize maybe Peter Wright will win, because I was in Mexico, but I was in Mexico City when he won last year, and I'll be in the U.S. capital like I was for the World Championship. So maybe I just have to be in a capital city, and that's all it takes. So we'll see. Though I think I was in London. I wasn't in London for the World Final. So maybe that's what it is. I think I figured it out. But anyway, thanks to our guests. Thanks to everyone who is listening. Thanks in advance to our producer, Anna, for everything that you're going to do for this episode, and of course that you'll do at the World Matchplay next weekend. We'll be back. Well, we'll see when we'll be back. I don't know if we'll have time to get an episode mid-tournament, at least a full episode of us discussing mid-tournament. That's to be determined. But we certainly will be back after the World Matchplay to discuss Michael Smith's first major title, first of at least 2 this year, as I predicted at the beginning of the year. So let us know anything else you'd like us to talk about, anyone you want us to get on. There'll be a little bit more time for that because, as you know, during August, there's not as many events or the World Series events, but there is time for us to try to catch up with some of the players that we might not have been able to get because they won't have that grind of having to go to and from events as much. So if there's anyone you want us to have on or anything that we've been neglecting while the calendar's been in full swing, let us know. Until then, hang tight and enjoy the darts.